Did you know that athletic or competitive sports have more in common with visual arts than many people realize? Hello, and welcome to Take 9 of my presentation, Athletics and the Arts. I think it's a shame that people don't realize that athletics and visual arts can be used together to make great things. People have this strange idea that sports and arts are like these two very different entities or subjects, and they're always flabbergasted when an artist plays sports or an athlete does art as a hobby on the side, even though it's really not that bizarre. For example, artists tend to derive, um, artists tend to get ideas from the athletics all the time, really. I mean, the Greeks and the Romans were especially known for this. A very famous case is the statue that you can see in this slide, called the Boxer at Rest, but it's also called the defeated boxer, the sitting boxer, the boxer of Caranal. Yeah, Caranal. It's called the Boxer of Caranal because it was excavated from Caranal Hill in Rome, because the city of Rome has like 7 hills that it's known for, apparently. And despite the fact that it was found in Rome, it's actually a Greek statue from the Hellenistic period. But the artist was very clearly inspired by the athletic sport or the competitive sport of boxing. And I chose to use this particular one as an example because I also enjoy the combat sports. I find them way more fun than ball sports. But that's beside the point. There are a lot more examples, such as the discus thrower, which is even more famous. It's a statue of the man with the disc. He's kind of got it like underneath like that. He's got his hand cocked back. But and then also, of course, a lot of artists were inspired by just the figure like of an athletic person, the muscle and all that, because the muscle tone was very impressive if captured by like in stone, because that was very difficult to do. A lot of texture. It's a good way to show skill. Furthermore, and there was a man, an artist named John Minksy, who was a resident artist at a college that I can't remember the name of because I don't have notes. And he did a whole series of photography just based on the rugby team, like the rugby team in action, taking breaks, of the coach. He just wanted to capture every aspect he could of the rugby sport because he just felt inspired by it as an artist. He just wanted to capture what he could of it. Furthermore, not only are artists inspired by sports, but sports benefit from the arts as well. Because every team you watch probably has something in common, no matter how different their sports might be. Excuse me. Every sport from basketball to baseball to football to rugby to hockey, any team sport, they have to have jerseys and logos and a distinct color scheme that distinguishes them from the other team, because otherwise it would just be a big confusing mass of guys trying to tackle each other. And it wouldn't be any fun to watch. You really could not have organized team sports if it wasn't for visual artists who design the logos and the color scheme and everything else that distinguishes the team from the other team. And also, I found a study conducted by the University of Idaho in the academic year of 2000 to 2001, in which they studied 312 schools in the area to find out how many of them had a competitive dance or cheerleading team. And the overwhelming majority did. The idea of this study was to confirm or to make a case for competitive dance being considered an actual official sport. And I find that interesting because dance started out as a visual form of art, a way of expressing oneself visually. So not only are pre-existing sports aided by visual arts via logos and jerseys and whatnot, but also some sports just could not exist without visual arts because some sports, like competitive dance, are just based entirely on forms of visual art. So that is a perfect example of sports benefiting from art. But finally, of course, sports and the arts do tend to do better if used together instead of just one inspiring the other, especially if it's equal and you just use them both at the same time. For another example here, their jackets are very snazzy. They were obviously designed by an artist, you know. Another great point of this would be the Colosseum. The Colosseum is a perfect example of visual arts and sports coming together because it was an epicenter of physical prowess, a place known for competition and sports being conducted, but it was made very ornate and elaborately with all sorts of etchings and carvings, and it looked even more beautiful originally before all the marble fell off. What we see it as today is probably far more simple than how it looked originally. I'm sure it was a masterpiece of art at the time. Well, we know it was, but not to what extent. And I think it's really important to acknowledge why art and sports are important to each other because if we do, then it'll become more normal to use sports and arts together in the same place at the same time, and we'll start to see more beautiful things come out of it, such as the Coliseum. We'll start to have more beautiful sports arenas, and maybe like the helmets and the logos and all that will be even better looking. It'll just it'll also bring the crowds together because sports and arts crowds usually don't mesh together very well. But if the two are brought together more, it'll bring people together.